I guess I'll do a little intro. I'm so good at these, as you can tell. Uh, but thank you, Naomi, for joining this interview talking about trans documentaries. I've been excited to do a conversation with you for a while. I first came across your Letterboxd account, I think when I was looking for Robert Altman ranked lists.
Oh yeah.
And you have a habit of doing like very thorough retrospectives of directors. And the Altman list had like TV movies I'd never heard of, lots of different like plays that he had filmed.
Mm.
Um, but after that, your account was one of the primary Pink accounts, really. If you go on Letterboxd and you get the Pink film, which I've really been getting into lately, there's only a handful of people who have seen as much as you have. And of course, the podcast that you are in recently, Pink Cat is one of my all-time favorite podcasts already.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
obsessed with it. It's incredible. And the zine that you make, Asian Shine. So it's just been really, really excited to talk to you about movies. So I recently was programming one of my favorite trans documentaries, Dressed in Blue. So I was watching a lot of documentaries to kind of prep for it and had seen that you had blogged a lot of them. And so that's why I reached out with you wanting to talk about it. So yeah, thanks for joining.
Sure, no problem. Happy to be here.
hmm With what we had talked about watching, I wanted to do at least a couple Asian movies, especially since you know so much about Japanese cinema in particular. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is Shinjuku Boys, which I know was already a favorite, but you told me on rewatch it became even more, fun
Yeah,
to do.
I
Yeah.
think I've seen it like maybe 5 times at this point. I first watched it ages ago, I think before I even got on Letterboxd, like 2019, just coming across like that shoddy YouTube rip everyone's seen that's in like 144p with the hard coded subtitles. And that's the
hmm
one I'm still watching because it's literally the best rip there is, unfortunately. But it is kind of nostalgic going back to it again and again, like every couple years, because it does feel like reconnecting with old friends at this point.
hmm Yeah, it's a super wonderful movie that I only watched for the first time recently, even though I'd heard about it for a while. A lot of, for years I've kind of been obsessed with trying to find like any kind of trans representation in media. And that was a movie that really caught my eye when I read. Have you read Corpses, Fools, and Monsters?
No, I don't think I'm familiar with it.
It's a
Oh,
book.
is it the trans movie book, the big one?
Yeah, Kate and Mark Gardner and Willow McClay wrote it a couple years ago, and I love that book. And Shinjuku Boys was something that really stood out as something that looked very interesting, and it definitely is. So we can start talking about it a little bit. It follows the life of mostly three specific. They're called onabe. I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah.
with like this term outside of this movie or.
Yeah, I've heard it in like maybe a handful of Pink films and like general V cinema. Like it's one of those words like okama, which it means cross-dresser. Like when you hear it, you just end up recognizing it every time it's said, even without subtitle. It's just something that'll click and you pick up on. But it's basically just the literal English translation of onabe is cooking pot, and it's essentially an outdated umbrella term that describes cross-dressers, butch lesbians, trans men, non-binary people, and any AFAB people. So it's just like a big mixing pot of people, really.
hmm Yeah, and that's something I think you see a lot when you just look at older transmedias. Labels
Yeah.
are constantly changing all the time.
Mm.
And that I think that's good to recognize because labels that we use now, we're not going to use 10 years from now, probably. So it's not, how important are they? Um, it's
Mm.
sad when I see some people, like people watch Funeral Parade of Roses or something and be like, oh, yeah, I don't like the way they talk about, some of the trans women. It's like, yeah, they're just using different language.
Yeah, and people need to remember that film's from 1969. Like, what
Yeah.
else was coming out around that time that was even a fraction of the things Hugh Funeral Pretty Roses is trying to deal with? I think for what it is, it's pretty damn phenomenal representation, and it's
Oh,
still
yeah.
highly regarded. And I think that says a lot about it.
For sure. But with Shinjuku Boys, we follow three men. terrible at pronouncing Japanese names, but Tatsu, Kazuki, and Gaish.
Yeah.
They work at this bar. It's called the Maryland Bar, which I would definitely attend if I was there in Shinjuku in the
Same.
90s. And so these onabe basically act as like boyfriends dates for different people that come. Sometimes it's sexual, sometimes it's not. They talk about whether they
Mm.
have sex with the people or not. But I have seen this director, this is the only thing I've seen from her. And it seems her whole thing is she makes stories about women in different countries. And she's made several movies in Japan. There's Eat the Kimono, Dream Girls, and Gai Girls. Have you seen
Yeah.
any of those other movies?
Yeah, I've seen Eat the Kimono, which is really good. That's got some small rat trans representation in it in the Kabuki performers, if I'm remembering correctly. And Gaia Girls is another all-time favorite. Absolutely phenomenal, amazing soundtrack, super grueling training process, and they don't really have anything in common. But I think you can still watch them as a double bill, which is why they were included on that old DVD release that
Hmm.
Shinjuku Boys is on. They're just such phenomenal documentaries. Like really, they are the best of the best.
Uh, yeah, I'm a really big fan of this movie, so I'll want to check those out as well. But you said those ones don't particularly. I mean, I know Dreamgirls is also kind of about like a theater troupe that is all
Yeah.
women, but do like cross-dressing roles.
Hmm.
So I'd be interested to see how that talks about in there. But this movie is my favorite thing in the world, and it's just hearing people talk about their gender and their sex life, and I could watch it for ages.
Same. It's so incredibly candid and at the same time vulnerable. It's you just say so much, and it really does exist at such a specific point in time in the mid 90s, but at the same time it just feels timeless with what it has to say. I think a lot of stuff being said is still very relevant now, even though there are like outdated terms, like we said. You can still really strongly connect to it from like a trans level or even just like a queer level. There's so much to love about it.
Yeah, the movie is also a phenomenally edited documentary. So right away we're introduced
Yeah.
that these three men have very different personalities. One's like very kind of sweet. One is like, kind of James Deanish, kind of like, oh, I'll treat women however I want.
Mm.
And there's always two things going on in every scene. So one of the first scenes where you get kind of the personalities of these people is Gaish is having dinner. I think it's with Tetsu and Tetsu's partner, and then
Yeah.
the phone call and is talking with one of the customers. And I love that scene because it's this whole movie, of course, is about gender, and you see the gender play between the two of like Tetsu's like a sweet boyfriend, and they're just kind of playing with each other. While Gaisha's on the phone being like, "Oh, why are you calling me right now? I'm not your
Yeah.
man. Stop bothering me."
Yeah, he's putting on his like tough guy Yakuza persona for the customers. It's so silly. Like I think that is part of his actual authentic personality, but he does definitely play it up at points, especially for the customers.
For sure. And that's one of those things. It's such it's a tired term, but gender is performance. And it's fun to see,
Yeah.
especially like so many, and a lot of times it's in like a negative view, but so many trans documentaries, especially if you go back into the 20th century, um, it's all people who like perform, like do drag performances, people who are sex workers, a lot of times because that's some of the only work that a lot of these people could do. And when you see, like in this movie, you see someone doing the performance at their job, like I have to be, like you said, maybe a tough Yakuza guy, but then you see in the interview,
Yeah.
very vulnerable. And talking about, like he says specifically, oh, when I have sex, I never take my clothes off. Because
Yeah.
there's one quote specifically. He says, if a girl is doing this with me, it means I'm fooling her, and I don't want to reveal that, I'm not what
Hmm.
she's been fooled into. Um, Not relatable at all.
Yeah, it's kind of like a game, but at the same time, it is very vulnerable. If I remember correctly, he says, "My body is not a man's, so I don't want her to see it," and that's when the vulnerability comes in. It's so raw.
Yeah. It's interesting. Each of these people, they talk about their sex lives pretty candidly.
Hmm.
And I like that this documentary does that. I like when trans people are treated as being sexual as well. And
Mm,
it's interesting. All three of them do talk about, even though their jobs are something that is, having to perform a kind of sexual persona, they all talk about that anxiety that's internal. So I don't know. It's interesting. Like when you watch, since you've seen a lot as well of trans documentaries, what's the thing that you link most to that you want to keep going back and hearing stories from different trans people?
well, for Shinjuku Boys in particular, I like how varied the trans people are. Like they're all friends, but they are distinct. Like one of them's non-binary and wears makeup. One's in a relationship, a committed relationship where they don't have sex. The other is in a relationship where they do have sex. It's with a trans woman, I believe it was, with Tatsu. So it's
Hmm.
all different, and it's like so often in trans media, as mainly like stuff we're getting now, like something you'd like randomly find washed up on the shores of Netflix, then it's like tries to depict trans people as ideal people. They are perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. Like they're trying to really sell the point that we are people, and like to an extent, yeah, that's good, but I'd much prefer a more fully rounded 3D depiction of a trans person. Like,
Mm.
obviously, we're not perfect people. We have our specific flaws and whatnot. And I don't think that human element comes across as much in modern media as I'd like. So to go back to the 90s, what is this, like 31 years ago now for this documentary? It's just so refreshing to see, like, oh, these people do have some flaws regarding like relationship stuff or like personal conflict stuff that comes through in moments of vulnerability, but they are actually people, and I think that's just really refreshing to see.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot on that. And that's something that when you see them do interviews on their own, you see them acting like in their job with a large group of people, you see a couple of them with their partners. So you see the different levels of like the kind of people that they are and the problems
Mm,
they have. Um, but yeah, you point out it's again with this movie, it's fun how very loose the gender play is. I would say it has a particularly, both the directors are cis, and it does have an interesting, well, I guess I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. It kind of has an outside looking in perspective, a
yeah.
little bit cis gaze, but I don't think that's a bad thing all the time. I think in this documentary it's pretty open. Um, but I don't know, do you see anything in this documentary that feels like gawking at all?
No, not really. Like I said, it
Yeah.
all feels very candid, and I think there's a good element to having cis directors because the
Mhm.
majority of the audience for this is probably predominantly going to be cis people just that come across it. So it is a good viewpoint for them to latch on to and kind of look into because it feels very there are like those candid interview sections, but it does have a very fly on the wall element to it where it's just like hanging out with these people, just vibing. That's why I said earlier it's like hanging out with old friends. It's a very relaxed documentary. There's no real big stakes or anything, so you do get to know them quite easily that way. So I don't find the viewpoint mm, particularly damaging or anything like that. I think it's
Yeah.
quite helpful, really.
I would agree, and I think one of the reasons is a lot of these, whenever these documentaries are made by cis people, there's always a point of like, okay, what are you? Like, there's a
Yeah.
an interview question where they're like, can you talk about what you are? And in this movie, it's integrated really well, where each person is talking. Sorry, my cat is joining. Um, each person has that discussion at different points, and it's not just the very beginning of like, oh, I feel like I'm a man. They're all have their own discussions of like, again, like you say, Gaish is kind of like, oh, I'm not a man, but I don't like being called a woman. I kind of is in that non-binary realm, but doesn't use that term because it doesn't.
Yeah.
Not only was a label probably something that wasn't really used at the time, especially in Japan, he also just seems to be like, I'm just doing what's me, I just like being seen how
Yeah.
I am. Um, so yeah, it's not very common to find a documentary that feels this. It gives all the subjects this much room to express themselves. Um,
Hmm.
I think like an American counterpart that is kind of similar would be now I'm blanking on the name here. What Sex Am I? Which I think you have
Oh yeah.
well. And
Hmm.
that movie I really love. Again, all these movies are amazing. No matter how bad a documentary is about trans people, the fact that you just see these people living makes me so happy. But What Sex Am
Yeah,
I
for
does
sure.
it has a very clinical gaze, and I'm glad this movie it doesn't have any white coat. It doesn't have anyone like doctor explaining what's happening.
Yeah, I've definitely got some issues with that film, but yeah, I do really like that about Shinjuku Boys. It just feels very relaxed, giving the subjects complete freedom to open up without being prodded or poked or forced to say like, "What are you exactly? Please spell it out for our cis viewers.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
dying to know."
So with the scenes in the bar, not only we see Kumi, which is one of the girlfriends who also works at like a drag bar, and
Yeah.
then we see the Marilyn as well. Have you seen very many either in documentaries or in like narrative in Japanese movies around this time? Was that a very prevalent thing? Those kind of like cross-gender play, like drag bars. Do you see that often in movies of this era?
For Japanese movies specifically, there's an animated miniseries I really like called Okama. I think it's called Okama Report from 1992, I think. So Okama basically means cross-dresser, so it's called Cross-Dresser Report. Well, that's the closest English translation for Okama anyway. And it's just about it's 3 episodes long. It's about these drag performers and a cis guy who starts doing drag after drunkenly doing it for like a dare, and he ends up getting all mixed up with this like straight girl that he's trying to get with, but she just sees him as the drag performer that he is and doesn't know it's actually him in drag. It's definitely very problematic at certain points, but the storyline is actually really lovely at the heart of it. And if you can get past the problematic stuff, then there is plenty to enjoy. But even going back to like the early 60s, you still see drag performers and drag bars in Tetsuji Takechi's Mondo film, Women Oh Women, which he did before
Oh,
he started making pink films like Daydream.
mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
haven't.
so it's all throughout every decade really. Even like some 80s pink films have some drag bars and similar stuff like that.
Okay, very cool. I like how in Shinjuku Boys, it's not treated as a very risque thing. In fact, the Maryland bar does seem to be appealing just to kind of like everyday straight women who are going there.
Yeah.
And I like it is interesting seeing the relationship that these women have with all the people who work in the bar. Um, because with some of them you see, Gaish especially has relationships outside of the bar with the women, but most of them it's just kind of there. We're gonna have like a party, we're gonna sing karaoke together with these
Mm.
wonderful, they're the best kind of men because they understand us, as kind of the feeling that you get from those scenes. Um,
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Japanese idol culture where the idols aren't allowed a girlfriend or a boyfriend while being an idol, so that it gives the fans, or in this case, the customers, chance to form that personal attachment to them. Like, oh, maybe I could become their girlfriend. I'll spend more money.
yeah. There's one scene in particular that stands out every time I've seen this movie, and the movie Dressed in Blue, which I recently just screened, has a similar
Yeah.
scene near the end of it. Um, but I'm trying to remember. It's Kazuki has a phone call at the end talking with her mom, which is not like a coming out phone call, but it's kind of like the first time. It's when she tells her like, "Oh, I'm in a relationship with another transsexual," and that's I'm not just working at the bar. That's kind of how I'm living as well. Um, that's a very emotional scene to watch. I love that.
Yeah, super vulnerable. You can tell the mum's initially offish, but she's like, This is a battle. I'm never gonna win it." So she's like, "Oh, it's your life. You can do what you want. I don't really like it that much, but yeah, yeah, just come home, please. It's been too long."
Again, there's nothing relatable in any of these movies, and
No, definitely not.
I that's something that is really validating to see something you relate to in a movie, but even more so is when you see other trans lives that you're like, oh, that's not like mine. Oh, wait, like I'm not in a monoculture. Like this, there's other experiences. People experience their gender differently. People experience like relationships around them differently after coming out. And I think this is a movie. This is gays. It is there, but it still is just such a beautiful like trans people telling their own stories. We haven't mentioned the soundtrack, but there's
Oh,
nothing
it's so
more like
good.
mid 90s than this. There's only like a couple tracks, but amazing electronic like dance music.
Yeah, I was just listening to it the second the credits rolled, trying to find out what these songs are.
Did you find anything on him?
Yeah, one of the YouTube videos, it's not the most popular one, but I think it's the second most popular one. If you look at the description, all three songs are just included in the description.
Mhm.
Not written by the person that uploaded it, but just like it's like I think it's like an automatic AI thing. Like the AI
Okay.
bot recognizes the music, then
Yeah.
just puts it in the description. So
Mhm.
that's the one good thing AI is doing, I guess, helping me find the Shinjuku Boys soundtrack.
Uh, you mentioned watching it on like a bad YouTube rip. I don't, do you have
Hmm.
Canopy in the UK?
I don't, I'm not sure we might do it. It's not something I've personally ever used.
Canopy is a streaming service that works with libraries, and there
Hmm.
is a like a nice transfer on Canopy that I watched this on.
Oh, nice.
So Canopy is great, and you might be able to use a VPN to watch that at some point. But
Hmm.
yeah, Canopy is an amazing resource because it's all with libraries, so you get everything free, and they focus on a lot of documentaries because it's supposed to be a very
Hmm.
educational kind of platform. But I think they have a lot of this director's documentaries that I'll have to watch.
Hmm.
But again, you talked about reasons why you returned to trans documentaries, and you said you've watched this like 5 times. What
Yeah.
specifically has made you come back to this one, and why on this watch was it such a your list I think is public so people can see it. You told me it was like in your top 100 Japanese like films, but now it's in your top 10. What was the big revelation of
Yeah.
this watch?
Well, I think the last time I watched it before this current watch was in 2021, and that was just before I publicly came out as trans. So I
Hmm.
think my perspective on the documentary has definitely changed and still continues to change each time I watch it. Like, I'm still watching the same film, but my own feelings associated with it are evolving each time, and I'm connecting with different parts of it to different characters I didn't previously connect to. So it's just like an ongoing evolution each time I watch it. I'm gonna pick up on something new, experience something new. So it just means a lot. It's a very obviously a very personal film, and I just get such immense value from it each time.
Yeah. Hmm. That's great. I'm glad that this was a reason for you to return to it. Um,
Yeah,
there,
sure.
there's nothing better coming. It's such a comfort movie. Um,
Definitely.
there's nothing better than going back to something that you already love. And because I have a lot of times where I watch a movie, I love it, and then I watch it again, and it's like, oh, okay. Um, but when you realize it still has that power, and I think documentary especially lends to that, because there's someone's life doesn't get any less important or any less powerful. And so yeah, it's an amazing movie. I am really glad I watched it and rewatched it, and I'm gonna watch it several more times again, especially after watching those others because I'm interested in that. One thing I kind of
Mm,
noted is trans mask representation is pretty notably like there's less than like any like
yeah.
trans women. And it's interesting that most that I've seen and most that I'm aware of, movies and documentaries about trans men, so specifically documentaries, are made by women directors.
Mm,
And this is one of them. There's Gender Knots, which is a Monica Truitt, I don't know how to say her name, Truitt movie.
mm.
That one, it's a very good movie, but again, it's interesting. Southern Comfort is also directed by a woman, and that's a very sad and wonderful movie. Um, Linda Less and Annie Sprinkle. Do you know Annie Sprinkle at all?
I don't think so.
She's a pornographer that did a lot of very experimental video work in like the 90s,
Hmm.
80s. And she's amazing, but she has great, it's like basically a fetish video of like, look at this man who used to be a woman and I'm gonna have sex with him, see what it's like. And it's very like circus sideshowy, but it's
Oh,
so
I think I do know
incredible to
this
see.
actually. Is it
Yeah.
the one from 1990 and the guy's just got on bottom surgery and he's testing it out?
Yes, yeah, yeah. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
right
yeah.
at the tail end. It's 89 or 90, but it is interesting to see, and again with this movie, I think the approach sometimes is with a lot of these filmmakers. Um, it's more women being like seeing the women in these men of like, oh, maybe like I was a tomboy, maybe this could have happened to me. And
Hmm.
with this movie, it's very understanding. And I think in the movies I named, I like those movies. So it's good to like be aware of like where that insight is coming from. I'm not saying these are bad movies because of that, but it's interesting that that's a trend I've seen. Um, of course, there's good trans docs made by trans people, but as a general rule, I feel like trans men they usually just get. I mean, it's a no against cis male filmmakers, if anything.
Yeah. I feel like if a cis guy is approaching the subject, there can sometimes be some sort of like fetishistic tone or gaze associated with it. It's like it doesn't really have any place being in this documentary regarding this subject matter, but you do feel it like creep through and it's a bit ugh, yuck.
Yeah. Is that a good segue to Twisted Sex?
Yeah, perfect segue.
Okay, neither of us had seen this movie before, and we wanted to watch something that we hadn't seen before. So, first
Yeah.
impressions. What did you think about Twisted Sex?
I absolutely love Twisted Sex. I
It's so
usually
good.
detest Mondo films for obvious reasons with the animal cruelty and whatnot, but I actually really love this. I thought this was phenomenal and it's something everyone should be seeing. So release it on Blu-ray, someone, please.
Oh my God, yeah. It's the I know like I know you have and we've both watched a lot of movies that don't have subtitles and it's like you can still appreciate so
Hmm.
much about art without subtitles. It's not important.
Yeah.
This is a movie that still was amazing to watch without, but ooh, I want a translation so bad because there's
Yeah.
so many interview segments, and there's so much discussion. But yeah, so kind of introduction with this movie. It's a Mondo movie. It's specifically about sex and sexual fetishism and all these things.
Hmm.
Very early for this kind of explicit material, 1971. To I know like pink film had been around for like several years
Just
at this
like
point.
8 years or something since
Yeah.
like 1962, I think it was. Maybe 10
And
years actually.
yeah, and Roman porno is just like 2 years away from starting now. Was that 70?
1971 it
Okay.
started.
Oh, okay, so same year. So obviously there is a lot of sex in Japanese movies like leading up to this, but
Yeah.
have you seen something from this early that is this explicit?
Uh, Women Are Women from 1963, I think it is. That's got a live C-section scene in it, which is quite
Damn.
extreme. But the rest of the documentary is quite tame in comparison. But I'd
Yeah.
say some of the stuff in this definitely trumps that.
Yeah, I would agree. It's funny with those Mondo like kind of movies. There's like, oh, maybe we can't show sex yet. We can't show things like
Hmm.
this, but we can show a C-section because that's medical, right? That's fine.
Yeah. As long as it's not genitals, I guess you don't have to blur it,
Yeah.
apparently.
And Twisted Sex, it doesn't have any genitals, of course, but it does get some very extreme BDSM at the end. It's so
Yeah.
fun to watch. Just kind of like an overview looking into the movie. You were talking to me about the director a little bit. Some things I found
Hmm.
on the movie is he directed three of these like Mondo type movies right around this era.
Oh.
So in 1970, there was Pilgrimage to the Sex Baths, which seems like it's just specifically about bathhouses. Um,
Hmm.
and there was Nippon 69 Sexual Curiosity Seeking Zone from 1969. The description of that movie on Letterboxd is just kind of like a scene by scene what happens, and it sounds incredible. There's on the Letterboxd it says like men um recreate the pain of childbirth. And I have to see what that means.
Yeah, that sounds actually fascinating.
So that one I found a way to download that one online. The Pilgrimage to the Sex Baths I didn't look into very much, but I
Hmm.
found these because the beginning of the movie begins with a trailer for the movie,
Yeah.
and there's titles popping up, and I Google translated them, which was pretty poor, but I saw that it's like, oh, following the previous movie on sex baths from the same director, and so it's interesting that he did these three very explicit sex documentaries, kind of near the beginning of his career, but he didn't primarily do sex movies, right?
Yeah, he's mostly regarded for being a like probably the second best Yakuza film director after Kinji Fukasaku. He's directed some really great Yakuza films. I think most for Toei as well. He even directed some V Cinema later into his career for the Yakuza Lady series. But yeah,
Hmm.
he's mostly known for just Yakuza stuff, so he does seem like a bit of a strange choice of director to do these things because it's a world away from what he usually does.
Yeah. And when I think Mondo film, I don't usually think Japan. You already mentioned Women O Women, and I looked up another movie called This Is Japan that was also early from 63.
Hmm.
But do you know if there's like a big Mondo film thing in Japan around this time?
Yeah, it's a really big scene, but it's from the 90s. I think it's Massacre Video who were doing some of the early guinea pig films were
Oh,
primarily
okay.
doing the Mondo films from that time. There's like the Death File series, which is kind of like Faces of Death, just all different death compilations on VHS tapes and
Mhm.
similar stuff like that. There's one called Dragon Sex, which is about a similar thing about queer people from the 90s, but I cannot find that anywhere. I can't even find a VHS listing anywhere, so God knows where that's gone.
That would be wonderful to find. So, but it seems like it wasn't until maybe like the 90s, more like the death videos, that this became more popular. So these are kind of strange
Yeah.
outliers, especially for this director to make three movies back to back. Um, so,
Yeah, definitely.
but after the trailer just is like a grab bag of like the craziest scenes in the movie. But then the movie gets into in the
Hmm.
first half is very sweet. It's very pleasant.
Yeah.
And it's almost entirely focused on people who are in drag, trans people in bars, trans people with partners, trans women mostly, but it seems like some trans men as well. Without subtitles, there's not a lot we can get out of
Hmm.
uh, this first section because it's mostly just interviews. But what were your thoughts? Like, you went into this and it teases a lot of crazy stuff, but then the first half, it's just kind of hanging out with a lot of cool queer people.
Yeah, it's great. It's a similar vibe to Shinjuku Boys like that. But I all I could think really was this is a great doc to show ignorant people who think being transgender is some kind of new social contagion. Just like,
Yeah.
actually, there's this cool documentary called Twisted Sex from 1971.
Hmm. Yeah, so there are still like the more like Mondo scenes near the beginning. So there are
Yeah.
long interview segments. There are doctors featured as well. So they're like sit down and they're
Mm,
probably very explanatory, like, ah, yes, there's a history of people who have these kind of hormones and people that feel this way. So it's probably in kind of the white coater vein. Um,
mm,
but most of this early part of this movie just takes place in bars. And when there are sex scenes, they're pretty lengthy. There's one kind of like gay
yeah.
orgy scene, which partially is just kind of gay men dancing naked. And then some of them are, kissing. Some of them are, it seemed like they're more sexual things.
Mm.
But there's also a surgery scene that I don't know if surgery bothers you in movies.
No, not really.
Okay, it doesn't really bother me either. Dressed in Blue, which I just screened, has a breast implant surgery, which is pretty graphic,
Mm.
which is interesting to watch. But this one, I don't know why it's not as bloody as Dressed in Blue, but it's uncomfortable to watch. It's
Yeah, I
like
didn't know
scanning.
what was going on with the eyelid surgery, really. It seemed out of place.
Yeah, the eyelid was very like it was very uncomfortable to watch, and it's very
Yeah.
jarring with these sweet interviews and people in bars and people dressing up. And then it's like, oh, now we're close-ups on stitching. I'm assuming it's some kind of like some kind of like FFS kind of thing, like changing
Yeah.
through the eyes. But that, along with the breast surgery, for anyone who doesn't like seeing surgery, they come back in the movie often, and it's pretty graphic. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm looking at my notes. Some notable like image that I loved. There's like a housewife scene. Um,
Yeah, Ginza Rose, she's a trans entertainer. She's
okay.
appeared in Pinku later in her career from the 90s. I mean it's called Shura's Destination.
Hmm.
It's like 95, so she just featured in that. But yeah, she's primarily just like a club singer.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering if you would have recognized any of the names, especially in this earlier section. So, Ginza Rose, were there any other like places or people that you recognize either from movies?
Uh, Not really places, but I recognized Oniroku Dan, who's the original author of the Flower and Snake what's the word I'm looking for? Novel. The original author of the Flower and Snake novel that
Yeah.
Nakatsu adapted into the Flower and Snake film, which basically just popularized S&M in films after that point. So he's
Mhm.
like a prominent figure in the BDSM scene. So it was cool seeing him in the film. And I'd love to know what he was talking about. Like one scene he just like played in his garden with his kid, and then it's just like all
Yeah.
ropes and stuff straight after. It's crazy.
I love that introduction because you can tell this movie has a very interesting of like, oh, look at this man, he's just playing with a child, but deep inside, he has these
Yeah.
desires. He
He
has this.
harbors visions of ropes and chains and whips.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't link that I looked up the name, but I didn't realize it was the same author as what Flowers and Snakes? I'm sorry.
Flower and Snake, yeah.
Flower and Snake. Yeah, that's a whole series that Nikatsu did, right? I've only seen the first one.
Yeah, like five films. I'd say the first two are only worth watching, the rest suck.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Um, there's another person who was interviewed later on, who I didn't know very much about, but I'd seen a lot of his art. Well, not interviewed, but he's talked about later on.
Hmm.
Siyu Ito. I don't know if
No, I'm not familiar with him.
so
No.
that all the when it starts getting into the more like fetish aspect, it starts with all these illustrations, all these bondage drawings, and that's all art
Yeah.
from this one artist. And looking into his life, it's really interesting, and those illustrations are incredible. They're gorgeous. I love the focus on the hair. Um,
Hmm.
and they range from kind of like geisha wear, like elegant, bondage to some very extreme, very bloody and violent,
Hmm.
like assault-centered stuff. And so I'm interested in looking at his work more. When I was looking up, there's collections of books that you can get his stuff. But I found that there was a movie that was made, a Tanaka movie, that is about his life, kind of a biopic called Beauty's Exotic Dance Torture. And he's played by
Oh.
Hatsuo Yamaya, who's the guy in Embryo Hunts in Secret. So I'm very interested in watching that now.
I don't think I know that film either.
Yeah, I'd not heard of it, and Tanaka's one of the, I feel like a lot of his movies have been released, and so he's a little bit more prevalent. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I'll have to watch that, especially if it's about this illustrator's life. Um,
Yeah, sounds sick.
Another section we get before the fetish is the tattoo scene,
Yeah.
and that was amazing. I don't know, are you into tattoos? Do you have tattoos at all?
I don't know. My skin's bare as possible. I don't have any tattoos. My girlfriend's got quite a few. I've like been debating for like a couple of years. Should I get a tattoo? Am I gonna regret it? I still haven't made my mind up and probably never will.
Oh, I've been in the same place for a few years. My partner has lots of very cool tattoos. So I keep debating. I'll get something. But this tattoo sequence might be my favorite in the whole movie. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so cool. I love the traditional Japanese style where they just like chiseling it in. It looks so damn painful, but the results are spectacular.
and when it shows that, it's specifically a scene of a woman getting her breasts tattooed.
Yeah.
So it's like certainly not comfortable, but the outcome's amazing. Um,
Hmm.
there's a cut to a shot that I immediately like had to take a screenshot of all these men sitting in a circle with full body, just that like traditional tattoo style. I know there's a lot of link to Yakuza when it comes to
Yeah.
tattoos. Did you know, I'm not sure, and I obviously don't know from the dialogue. Was this specifically tied to Yakuza tattooing, or is this?
Uh, yeah, it's kind of Yakuza tradition to just get the full body back tattoo. So I assumed all those guys were Yakuza.
Mhm. That's interesting to see that link of like, even though it's primarily a movie about sex, that is also put in there as a kind of fetish or a kind of sexual act. Makes
Yeah.
makes me think I'm gonna have to pause to look up the name of this movie. Um, I should have had it ready in my notes because now I'm thinking of this. Have you seen very much like American gay porn?
Um, no, I don't think so. Not like early 70s and 80s, like actual porno stuff. I've not really seen any of that. It's a massive blind spot for me.
Okay. I guess I've seen more than the usual person, but I'm still
Hmm.
in the early getting into it. But there's one of the more popular movies, Falconhead. It's a great one. It's very like horror dreamy. But the director Michael Zen, when he made Falconhead, he also shot it with a popular tattoo artist. Um, a short just about how he tattoos and how it's a very sexual thing for him. So I liked that
Hmm.
this scene was included. And I wonder if any of the dialogue talks about tattooing as kind of a sexual thing. But I like how this was included as just something that is fetishistic, the idea of tattooing, the idea of kind of the body worship that comes with it.
Yeah, there's a old novel written by the same guy that wrote Daydream. I'm
Mhm.
blanking on the name of his name, but it's Irazumi, if you know what that is. It's all about just a woman that gets like this big spider tattoo, and it's been remade a dozen times, and it's been years since I've seen the 80s version, Spirit of the Tattoo, but it's all about like pain mixed with pleasure and sexuality, how it all combines, from what I remember at least. So it's really interesting.
Mhm. So, with the all the bondage stuff at the end, we get several different things, and it's amazing like how much this movie encompasses. We have kind of like a performance art, like two lovers stabbing each other, a lot of like ink
Yeah.
blood, on a stage. We have like a lesbian bondage scene, like just a couple of them. And we have like one woman dominating this man, which is the first shot of the movie, which when I started it, I just laughed out loud because the first shot of the movie is like very close up, violent, like this woman shoving this man in between her legs. Um,
Yeah. It's a
and
great way to start a film.
it's the only way to start a movie. And then you have this like three men doing very heavy bondage on these two women that include like suspension, a lot of rope
Hmm.
stuff, darts, throwing darts on them. Um, when you obviously you watch a lot of degraded stuff. I love watching a lot of horrible stuff.
Yeah.
When a movie has, whether it's a pink film or something, it has heavy S and M elements. Is that something you're attracted to, or is it just kind of part of the journey?
Like on a personal level?
On both, like are
Oh,
when you hear a movie is a bondage movie, are you excited to watch it for those reasons?
yeah, I guess I'm excited to watch anything that's got like extreme S&M stuff in, but for me personally, I'm a very, very vanilla person. My viewing habits don't correlate to my personal life whatsoever.
It's interesting to see that is a common case, I think. Um,
Hmm.
because you got to find some way to get that extremity out, so you can watch this stuff.
Yeah.
So are you queasy at all? Like, do you grimace through it? Or...
No,
Mhm.
not really for bondage. I tend to just enjoy watching it really. I think it's just fun and it's interesting to see how far you can like push someone before breaking point. It sounds a bit morbid, but it's all consensual and they are having fun at the end of the day.
It's great. It does seem like they're having a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
for anyone, again, this being like a mondo film, it being a documentary, those scenes, it's completely unsimulated stuff.
Yeah.
The
There's
probably
even
the
some scat content at the end, which is pretty gross.
I was wondering if that was because it's a little if it did come out of someone, they're not healthy.
Yeah.
But
They should consult with that doctor that was featured earlier in the film.
they should. And then since it was so brief, I'm assuming it was, just like a shock moment. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, again with the like suspension, all the heavy bondage scene, I did really enjoy that. But really, probably my favorite scene in the movie would be just like the female dom and the man. She like rides him as he walks around. She's very violent. She burns a cigarette on him. Um,
Yeah.
there's one point where she's like straddling on top of him and it was like rubbing something on his back, and I thought it was like, oh, this is like the aftercare, this is like an aloe or something, something's, but then we see it's full of needles and she's like
Yeah,
stepping on it. This is very intense. It's wonderful. So it's great to watch a movie with such whiplash.
definitely.
Yeah. And the best, do we want to spoil the ending for anyone who wants to watch it?
Uh, I don't know. I do want people to really watch this film and not put them off, but I think we'd probably be fine spoiling it.
Okay, well, not that there's a huge spoiler, but it ends with everyone burning in hell because that's where they
Yeah.
belong. And how did you react when you saw the ending?
I thought it was beautiful. I really loved it. Like that's actually so artistic. This film is all over the place in
Mhm.
terms of how it's like it's so cute and sentimental. It's just like scat, then it's just like in hell. It's just like BDSM jumping all over. It's crazy.
Yeah, with the ending in particular, this is a Toei film, so it's by
Hmm.
no means like that ending is an incredible red backdrop and the flames in front of the actors all falling and dying, and it's just gorgeous. It looks incredible. It's what you would get from a studio picture from Japan in the era. And
Yeah.
mixed with something that has such extreme content, it's a beautiful contradiction. Um, there's so much, and also the very last shot is a beautiful sunset scene, and it's worth pointing out that there's beautiful landscape footage in this movie as well. There's
Yeah.
near the beginning, there's an incredible just like car montage of just like a car drive with a very nice. It sounds like it would be like a Barry Manilow song in the background. Um, so I would love to see, who do you think this was made for? Like what?
I think it was made for everyone because there is something in there for everybody. Like
There's
if you
something
like
for
those
everyone.
picturesque Toei sunsets or the nice artistic hell set, they'll if you like degenerate BDSM stuff, you're covered. Even if you like animals like snakes, there's something in here for you as well.
Yes. Oh, that snake scene is beautiful. There's someone, a performer with a huge snake.
Yeah,
And unlike most Mondo films, the snake is not harmed. Um,
yeah. I think
so
they
you
are
do
force feeding at me at one point,
that
which is a
that
bit
yeah,
confusing. Yeah,
that
but
was uncomfortable. But
yeah.
Twisted Sex, such a wonderful thing. I'm glad I watched
Hmm.
it. And again, I really hope I hope a lot more people watch it. Hopefully, maybe we get fan subs,
Yeah, I
or
sure hope so.
more than that. It would. I don't know how this would be sold, but I know Liz Purcell is one of the few people who have reviewed it on Letterboxd. If
Hmm.
you're familiar with Liz Purcell.
Yeah, they own Muscle, don't they?
Yeah, they own Muscle, and so I don't know. This could be a Dream Muscle title. She's distributing the
Definitely.
Sato stuff. She has her fingers in there, and Toei is a studio they could contact with. But yeah, dream movie to get a Blu-ray release of. Who knows if it'll ever happen.
Yeah.
Do you want to transition to the last movie here? I Am My Own Woman,
Yeah, the masterpiece.
a masterpiece. Oh, you think it's a masterpiece? You loved
It's
it?
one of the best films I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's an amazing movie. I'm glad you loved it. So we talked about two Japanese films, which I loved hearing your insight on those, and particularly things that I would not have caught on at all. So I'm glad that you were down to talk about something that's kind of your expertise. And this one I wanted to watch just because it's one of my favorite movies ever made. So,
Hmm.
the just kind of an overview. The director Rosa von Braunheim made this. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. I've only seen like seven of his movies, but every single one highly recommend. Like explodes the form of cinema in ways that few other filmmakers can. But just kind of an introduction to him, is he's a German filmmaker. He made movies in Germany and in the US. He started in Germany and in the US. He was kind of here in like the 70s. He'd go back and forth often because he had gotten a lot of political issues in both places. But this movie made in 94 was back in Germany. And it's an incredible documentary about Charlotte von Mahlsdorf. And it's mostly a documentary about furniture.
Yeah.
But I know you mentioned you've seen like a couple of Trondheim's movies before.
Yeah, I think I've seen a Christmas film he did. It was Let Me Be Your Bratwurst, I think it's
That's a
called,
short,
which
right? I
is
haven't seen that.
yeah. It's literally the closest I've ever seen to someone capturing the feel of a David Lynch film.
Okay,
It
okay.
feels like Mulholland Drive if it was even gayer. It's so good.
I'll watch that the second this interview ends.
Also, hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. But this documentary, it's based off of a memoir that Charlotte made under the same name, I Am My Own Woman. Also inspired a play that John Cameron Mitchell said inspired Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Oh, that's
Particularly the
awesome.
idea of like, like Germany and the other side of the Berlin Wall and like
Yeah.
that mix of like gender separation and also like political separation. So it's interesting that that is inspiration. But besides that, I don't think there's very many cultural touch points to this movie. This movie isn't talked about very much. It's not very popular, but it definitely should be. So you say it's a masterpiece. What did you love? What did you connect about with this movie?
Oh, it's just amazing that something like this even exists, really. Like, Charlotte is she has to be one of the bravest people to ever exist. Like, defying Nazis, being proudly who she was always meant to be, never buckling down and pretending to be a man or anything. She was always trans, always presented herself as authentically trans, and it's just a really beautiful, heartwarming thing to see, really. And her life was so depressing and difficult, but she remained optimistic through it all and ultimately positive, and it's just so damn refreshing.
Mm, yeah, for a lot of trans stories being very sad, especially in documentaries, a lot of
Mm,
popular documentaries like The Salt Mines or Southern Comfort, it's all about like this is really these are terrible lives, and people have to
yeah.
life because they're not accepted. And this movie very easily, like even the ending is like the where she's at in her life then terrible things are happening. Like
Mm,
Nazis are bashing the parties that she's going to. She's still having trouble keeping the museum, but the movie's so happy. It like takes her personality and shows like at the very beginning she has a quote. She says like I've made my dream come true of like I'm living my dream life. That's what I've done my whole life. Um, what really stands out about this movie is its form is I always say when I've been watching a lot of these documentaries, you can tell when they're made by a queer person. And even though Rose von
mm,
Trondheim is, a cis man, he consistently has incredible trans representation. He also made the documentary Transsexual Menace, which is very good and is a great overview of kind of like the history of trans activism in America. He talks with a lot of
mm,
people who have been involved since the 60s. But he has such a an experimental approach to cinema that's immediately like queer, at least to me. There's an immediately something that like no straight person could make this. Not just in the camp sensibilities, but also the way just to look at and interrogate a life feels so introspective that like only a queer voice comes from it. So the way that this entire documentary is part biopic, but part like herself in real
Yeah.
time and interviewing the people who are making the biopic about her. Um, so those sections are amazing. What did you think like when that first happened? It was kind of a shock for me when she starts talking to the actors like, "Oh, this is how you should play it."
Yeah. I love that so much. My favorite thing in all of cinema is blurring the lines between fantasy and reality. So
Mhm.
you never
Yeah.
know, oh, is this real? Is this fake? And they just meet in between. It's phenomenal. So it's just like stage recreations of Charlotte's life are incorporated into actual documentary stuff that's going on in present day where Charlotte like steps inside the celluloid mirror and just interacts with her past selves. It's I can feel it all over right now. I've just got like chills up and down my neck and head and shoulders. It's so good, so good. I love it so much.
Beautiful. There's so many moments in this where it's there are kind of obvious moments like, oh, the old Charlotte, the real Charlotte, she opens the door and then her younger self comes on the other side of the door.
Yeah.
But it's so much more than a visual gimmick. It's so much more than just that idea. It's like it's a movie that's about history as much as it is about one person. Um, and there's a point where it's talking about she was imprisoned for, we should say, killing her Nazi dad, which everyone needs to be a
Yeah.
little bit more like, Charlotte, this is incredible. Like at a young age, as a teenager, like really has like just takes life into her own hands. Um, and there's a point where she's in prison and she's freed because of bombings and because of it was at the end of the war. And so as she escapes, there's an incredible scene of the younger like actor showing her escape. And there's a point where she runs away from these couple soldiers who are going to kill her. And then the actor
Mm.
suddenly like running towards Charlotte, and the real Charlotte like holds, like they hug each other. And that was a point, that's maybe like 15 minutes into the movie. That's a point where I was like, this is going to be a favorite. It's just so tense.
Yeah.
It's so involved in its own story. Um, we kind of we kind of skipped over this, but at the beginning of the introduction, Charlotte talks about how she was introduced to the idea of like being trans and being different through a queer family member, her aunt, who like always presented as a man. Um,
Mm.
and I think that's a beautiful thing because so many of these stories about are about found family, and so
Yeah.
it's a fantasy for a lot of people, and it's a beautiful thing of like, oh, there's someone who like is actually in my family, someone I can actually like confide in and talk to, um, and that's a beautiful thing to see. And I think yeah, that we all needed someone to help tell us like what was happening to us, I think.
Mm.
Um, and the way it's shown in this movie is just very sweet.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. You really don't see this kind of stuff depicted in like even older queer cinema, really. It is usually just about found families more so than actually having an accepting family member because that's so often just not the case in real
Yeah,
life. So Charlotte was really lucky to have such an accepting aunt like that.
yeah, and there's a great scene near the beginning where the aunt's like, you know, God played a trick on me and you. She says nature, I think, but
Yeah.
important like difference. And so Charlotte is like, you know, can dress as she wants, you know, as a kid around her. And then there's a scene where Charlotte sees one of the stable boys, and then they just start having sex. And and sees him as like, oh, carry on, go ahead. And again, that's so uncommon. Like that wouldn't happen. Um, so this movie is very explicit in its sexuality. How do you feel about that story of like it's a trans story, but it's just as integrated with Charlotte's like sex, kind of like how Shinjuku Boys is.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it earlier, but like trans people not all the time, but they can be depicted as like non-sexual in a lot of media. So again, this is
Yeah.
quite refreshing to see someone so bold in their sexuality. Like even the scenes where she's like going to like the public bathrooms looking for hookups and stuff. That could have been a detail so easily glossed over, but they chose to include it because no, this is a part of Charlotte's personality. Sex is a part of what defines her as her own woman, so it's important to include it.
Yeah, going back to Shinjuku Boys again, like the interview with like the T for T couple, it's like, oh, we don't have sex.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of want to, but she doesn't want to. She had an operation. She doesn't really need it. And that's sometimes the view of just what trans people are like. And sometimes that's like a negative view of like how people view like gender affirming surgery of like, oh,
Yeah.
you won't have sex anymore. Like you'll lose all want. Um, but Rose's movies are always extremely pro-sex. They're very sexual. And
Hmm.
he's an amazing movie I just watched earlier this week, Army of Lovers, Revolt of the Perverts. And there's a great scene where he's like, have you seen that one?
No, I don't think I've seen it.
There's a great scene where he's like, oh, I was invited to teach a class on film, this college class. So
Hmm.
I decided to invite this porn star I saw, and we were going to have sex in front of the class, and they'll film us, and it'll demystify homosexuality.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I love he's that kind of guy. And so then you see him have sex and he knows his way around. Um the very, very good movie. What can I say? Um but yeah, the talking about language again, the way that Rosa talks about like her identity. How did you because it's very unique. Again, you don't hear like trans people in movies talk about this. The way she says like I am my own woman. Like how do you view I guess I don't really have a question with this, but like the way she talks about like, she uses a term, I'm a transvestite, not a transsexual, which again isn't terms we use very often today of like, oh,
Yeah.
transvestite at the time was usually like a man who wears women's clothing, transsexual someone who would get surgery, someone who would like fully transform. And in this way, it's very modern and very progressive, the way she's like, oh, I don't need those things. I'm just a woman. So
Yeah. I
that's
interpret it as just like I am my own woman, aka I am my own individual person, regardless of what your views are on sex or gender or your politics. Nothing's going to affect me. I'm always going to stay headstrong, believe in what I believe in. I am my own person and can't be changed.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to say it, and this movie shows it perfectly. Um, Another part of the history that I loved, the scene where she plays the record in the old gay bar, makes me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, she's the original trans DJ.
I know there's a Letterboxd review that says something along the lines of, it's like she DJ'd at her gay bar and she spent her life with her special interests like collecting furniture. I cannot emphasize how much we've always been like this.
It's so true.
But the smile on her face as she plays the record and starts singing, and then it cuts to a younger version of herself singing in the bar. Oh my God,
Yeah, just chills, so many chills.
it's so beautiful. But when we talking about like the cruising again, talking about it talks about her relationships with men that she has, and those scenes make me so happy as well because they it's such a big and full life to cover, but the film somehow will talk about things in a small amount of time, but give them such a weight, like you're understanding her whole life. Like she mentioned
Hmm.
someone that she met in the baths, um, and you see them have sex one time. They have very fun like role play sex where they do like math on the board. Um, and she just kind of mentions like, yeah, we were together for 27 years. And that's the only time that person is mentioned. But
Yeah.
the movie somehow gives that scene has the weight of like a relationship that lasted that long.
Yeah, it's impossible to fit an entire life into any biopic, but unlike most mainstream biopics, every single scene feels like it's actually meaningful and not crammed in for just the sake of, oh, we need to mention this, we need to mention that. Every scene feels respectfully heavy and plays such an important role in Charlotte's life and what defines her as a person.
hmm I like you saying things are just crammed in because this movie, a lot of documentaries, you feel like it has a checklist. Like, oh, we got to get this
Yeah.
perspective, we got to get this idea in there. But this just, it's, I think partially because it's based off of her memoir, it feels
Mm.
so, Rose's directing is definitely very apparent. You know, his style is very there, but she feels in complete control of what is being talked about. Um, and that's one of the reasons why it's one of like the most trans documentaries because there's so little of it that feels like it's not from her perspective.
Yeah, like even the sh scene she's starring in as herself, she feels so at ease and so relaxed. Like even that scene where she has to bend over and get spanked, she's like, no, no, it's done like this. You can tell she's having such a great time. Like even though these must be like painful memories to revisit, she just feels so at home in doing so, and it must mean just like such a happy film crew to be a part of.
hmm her personality is so contagious and it makes me so happy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discussion about like activist groups that she was a part of, different gay organizations. And there's an amazing scene where they're going through a slideshow of all these, you know, the different places that she would always host, and she had this big castle.
Mm.
But she would always host these meetings. And the scene where like the Soviet officials like approach her and are like, "Hey, you're having these meetings. You need to give us the names of these people." I love how she responds,
Mm.
like just kind of happy, like, "Oh, I don't, you know, I don't know their names. That's how it was in the Nazi times. We don't give any last names just for security." And I love how the guys look at
Yeah.
each other like, "What's
Like
that?"
no one's ever responded like this before. We don't know what to do.
Yeah, and uh, my education on Eastern European politics is severely limited, but this is a
Mm.
movie that talks about the oppressed stay oppressed in any form of government that isn't fully a form of liberation. And so she combated against the Nazis. She combated against like East Germany and that rule under the Soviet Union. And then even after
Yeah.
the wall went down, her life is still very hard, and she's still not given support from the government. She still is a target for like hate crimes. Um, but the whole movie is still so happy.
Yeah, it's just such a positive mindset that I think it's so hard to relate to as like a person currently living in this day and age. But if Charlotte could get through all these Nazi occupied times and whatnot with that kind of mindset, then it's just something like, oh, I can do something like that. I shouldn't be so negative. It's very empowering to see.
And you can see very clearly like her personality near the end when they are hosting that big party um at her place like after the wall has fallen, and then
Mm,
it's interrupted. Like, there's like a crowd of neo-Nazis that come and attack, and there's a lesbian couple that lives with her at near the end of her life and help her in the museum, which is beautiful. But one of those women is talking about it and is like, you can tell like reliving like how traumatic that would be. And it's like,
mm.
I've never seen violence like this. You know, I didn't live in the Nazi times, and so I've never seen violence like this. And Charlotte just is like a solemn, kind of like nodding along, like, yeah, you know, this happened, but this has happened and it's gonna happen again. Um, and it's such a comforting movie to watch because
Definitely.
it's reassuring.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd say so. Like this violence can strongly impact your life, but it never has to define who you are. Like Charlotte says, I am my own woman, and so is everyone else. Everyone's their own person.
in terms of this is something that is in so many trans documentaries. I love how traumatic Charlotte's life is, but it never uses that as like, well, that's why she's like this.
Yeah, exactly. It's so refreshing in that way. It's just like I I don't think I can name maybe like another positive trans documentary I've seen other than Shinjuku Boys, really.
Mhm. I since I've seen a lot, there are definitely some others I really love, but this is my favorite. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite movies. It's just come on, it's incredible. Um, but yeah, I love the way like transness gets diagnosed, even in well-meaning ways. And in this
Hmm.
movie, it's just who she is. They talk about Magnus Hirschfeld in this movie a decent amount. Are you familiar with Magnus Hirschfeld at all?
Yeah, Rosa's done another kind of biopic all about him. He's the foremost German researcher on trans individuals, isn't he? I think he was associated with performing the first bottom surgery, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, he did a lot of early. I don't know about the surgery. I don't know a whole lot about him, but
Hmm.
I really like how the emphasis on that. It's this movie just emphasizes history so much and understanding history and the importance of like knowing your queer history, and that's what I get the most out of watching. I think most I watch so many trans movies, but I don't watch any like past the 2000s, and that's on me. That's like a bad thing. But part of that is like I want to know what was like the earliest representation that we have. What are these stories that are just forgotten because and a lot of like newer queer representation is very whitewashed. It's very bland. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed this movie. I hope you watch a lot more. I'm gonna watch a lot more of Roswell and Prawnheim
Oh,
so we can talk
definitely. Yeah,
about it.
I've been wanting to go through his filmography with my girlfriend at some point. So that's why I didn't want to watch this without her because she'd have actually killed me if I did.
So yeah, yeah, you did watch this together. What was your reaction with both of you, like watching it
Yeah,
together?
she absolutely loved it. I think she's giving it a 9 out of 10.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
when I rewatched this movie, my partner wasn't watching it with me, but she was near me, and it's just like every 10 minutes, like I have to pause this, I have to kiss you. I feel so happy. I'm just like, this is
That's
it.
so cute.
It's a go-to comfort movie, which is
Mm.
amazing to say for a movie that talks about domestic abuse, that talks about a lot of violence and very sad things, but it never once loses its outlook of just like perseverance. Um, and yeah, it's such a great movie. All three of these movies I enjoyed watching so much, and I hope more
Mm,
people watch
same.
them. Um, because these are three that are among my favorite trans documentaries for sure.
Yeah, totally the same. I don't even think I Am My Own Woman even has a DVD release. I think it's still trapped on VHS, which is so sad. Like, surely at least one boutique label can restore this. Like, this is such an important film, such an important part of queer history that needs to be told, and new people need to see this. It's just so immensely important, needs to be preserved at all costs.
All of von Braunheim's stuff is severely
Yeah.
overlooked. And again, going back to Liz Burchell, I mean, I've learned a lot about queer history, like in cinema from her. She's one of the
Mm,
prominent voices when talking about these overlooked things, and she's programmed retrospectives of his work. Um, and
mm.
so, yeah, this is of what I've seen, this might be the first one I would recommend to anyone. Um, just of like how unique of a movie it is, how it's experimental, but it's very welcoming in the way that it uses that. And I don't like using the word camp very much. It's just so but it the way that the biopic scenes go, it's just like directly into your heart. They're so direct. There's no kind of artifice there. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, despite blurring the lines of reality and fiction, it is a very accessible film, and anyone who watches it is instantly gonna fall in love with Charlotte. There's like no doubt about that.
Oh yeah. Oh, there's a follow-up movie that I couldn't find anywhere. But it's
Yeah, filmed 10 years after, I think. I haven't looked for it, so I don't know if it's out there available or not.
I was looking again this morning. I couldn't find it, and obviously there are people who have vlogged it that maybe I can find some way. But yeah, I would love to watch
Hmm.
that because and if there's a translation, I would love to get the book because you can only imagine how many stories aren't talked about in the movie. The movie can only be so much, and it's a pretty short movie as well. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, there's so much more to talk about and discover with each of these movies, but I'm glad we had this discussion. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for wanting to talk again. It's been a really great time talking with you, hearing your thoughts on movies that aren't just pink movies. Um,
Yeah.
your insights and like your knowledge, especially on like Japanese cinema, it's helps me appreciate these movies more.
Yeah, I had a really great time. Thanks for inviting me to talk. It was a good opportunity to watch something that wasn't Japanese and wasn't just a pink film.
But we'll all go back to that. You're watching all the Rope and Boys movies, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're calling me out. Yeah, I've got like three more to watch. I think I'll definitely get back to them soon.
They'll just keep getting better, I'm sure.
Yeah, I sure hope so. It's so weird.
Well, on top of that, you talked to me about things that you'll be recording? Do you have things you want to talk about coming up? This interview might not be out for another week or two, but do you have things coming up you want to
Uh,
talk about?
Let me think. What have I got going on? Currently trying to do another issue of design. Obviously, recording a podcast again next week. Pink Cat. That's gonna be a non-exploitation episode that should be out in a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Recording another podcast tomorrow with my friend Angel for his Girls with Guns podcast he's doing. It's the debut episode of that, and I've written a Blu-ray booklet essay that should hopefully be out in a with a Blu-ray from a boutique company sometime later this year. No
Oh
idea
my
when
God.
though.
That's great. You don't know when though? Okay.
No, no clue.
I'm excited. It's pink, I'm assuming.
Surprisingly no, but I do talk about Pinku in it.
Oh, well then I'm so ex yeah, that's amazing. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, you have so many things. Again, you're really inspiring for a lot of the stuff that I started phosphine cinema like a year ago, and with screenings and trying to do a zine, which is a lot harder than people think it is. And
Yeah.
uh, just everything you've done with movies, it just makes me fall in love with movies more. So
Oh, so nice to hear. Thank you so much.
King Cat is amazing. It's my favorite. Daydream has become one of my favorite movies as well. So
Oh, that's great to hear.
I'll have to watch Woman Oh Woman.
Yeah, it's definitely not as good, but it's still very interesting.
I got my Mondo, my Mondo itch now. After quit.
Just don't go looking for those 90s Japanese Mondo films. I think you'll actually get mentally scarred from that. They are
I know,
horrendous.
I've never watched anything too extreme, but I just get further and
Mm.
further into it. So hey, maybe one day I'll never watch something I've regretted watching, but it'll
Mm.
happen one time.
Oh God.